Story of the time I quit a job because my boss was extremely discriminatory. I thought I was gonna butcher that word. Oh god. I would say the R word, but like, I feel like it would get banned off TikTok, so, you know. So anyway, I worked at this place, and right off the bat, I kind of got weird vibes from the lady that worked there. Like, she seemed nice, but she was also, like, very blunt and, like, straightforward, which there's nothing wrong with that. Except for when you're extremely blunt and straightforward towards, like, your opinions about things that are extremely controversial. Why can't I speak today? Controversial, yeah. So, oh my god, I'll just tell you, like, one story. Maybe I'll tell more in the future, but, like, I can't even express to you. I get angry. Like, I know I'm gonna get angry while I'm talking about this. So, anyway, a group of people that spoke Spanish came to the stand. And they were just browsing, you know, I was, like, trying to help them, but they didn't know what they wanted, which is pretty normal. I feel like every single person does that when they walk past the stand in a mall, you know? So, they end up walking away, not getting anything, which is, like I said, pretty normal. And the lady goes, I feel like I can't say this on TikTok. She's like, ugh, those people, like, they just never buy anything. Except, like, she said, like, Mexican. And I was like, how do you know that they're Mexican? Because whenever people say, like, really dumb stuff, I always just hit them with, like, a really stupid question. Like, not even a stupid question, like, a good question, but one that makes them feel stupid, you know what I mean? And she was like, because look at them, like, you could just tell. And I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. I honestly, like, I can't tell. Like, you could tell that they're Hispanic, but, like, they definitely don't look, you know, Mexican. And she was like, what? That's literally the same thing. Like, what are you talking about? And it's crazy. Like, I forgot to mention this, but she literally moved here from a different country, like, a few years ago. So I just, like, don't get how she could be so ignorant, you know? Anyway, we had jewelry imported from Mexico and from Guatemala. So one day this guy comes in. It's, like, right before Valentine's Day. He's like, oh, I have to get my wife something really special because her birthday's on Valentine's Day. And, like, you know, I have to knock both of those events out at once by getting her something extravagant, blah, blah, whatever. So I showed him the jewelry from Guatemala because it was pretty expensive, you know? And the lady's like, did you tell him it's imported from Guatemala? Did you tell him that it's handmade, blah, 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 whatever? And I was like, oh, which one is it? From Mexico or Guatemala? And she's like, you should know this. This is the first thing I taught you from Guatemala. And I was like, well, they look the same. Like, how could you tell? And hopefully that made her feel stupid.
Story time about how my husband forced me to do the dirty with another man and filmed it. Disclaimer, is not my story time, I said on Instagram. I told my husband to get rid of the video, but he doesn't want to. And now he's asking me to do it again with somebody else. Here's a little backstory. My husband and I have been married for 4 years. He's in the military, so he spends a lot of the time away from me. Now, sometimes I think this is a blessing, but it's also a curse. When he's away from me, he's really sweet. He sends me written hand letters saying how much he loves me and how much he misses me. But in the same breath, he'll turn around and accuse me of sleeping with somebody else because I didn't answer the phone while I was at the supermarket. He gets jealous at least once a week, and we always end up having a huge fight over the phone. But when he is home, he's completely hypersexual. He wants to do it all the time. And if I don't want to do it, he gets upset. He once told me that he should just have a girlfriend so that when I don't want to do it with him, he can have somebody else to do it with. And I know that you guys are going to say this is all toxic behavior, but I don't really try to correct his behavior. Because he's in the army, he thinks everything he does is right. And it's just easier for me to go along with it. Is that bad? Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my husband forced me into doing the dirty with another man while he filmed it. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, instead of me on Instagram. And now that I'm asking him to delete it, he says he won't. Like I said in part 1, he's in the army. So when he's home, he's super hypersexual. Always wants to have sex, and if I don't want to, he gets really mad. The last time he went away, he started writing to me about his new fantasy. And guess what his fantasy was? He wants to watch me do it with another man. But as soon as he told me, I said absolutely not. First off, I don't want to do it with any other guy. Secondly, I don't want to do it in front of my husband. Remember how I said he gets jealous and we always fight about it? He said that this way I could do it with any guy that I want and he wouldn't get jealous. I kept saying no for a full 2 days. That's when he started calling me every single night, telling me that if I loved him, I should just do it, and that so many other women would do anything to please their husbands. He even said that I should consider myself lucky that he would be willing to let me do it with somebody else. That's when he started sending me pictures of other men in the army, and he basically said, take your pick. But I kept saying no. Then he spent the next 2 weeks trying to convince me to do it. He wore me down so much that eventually I said yes. Part 3 is Part 3 of how my husband forced me into doing it with another man while he filmed it. Disclaimer, is not my story time, it's on me on Instagram. I finally gave in and said yes to doing it with another guy. I had literal knots in my stomach knowing that I was gonna have to do it. But I justified it because a lot of women do things that they normally wouldn't do for their husbands. So why shouldn't I? My husband finally came home from the army. 2 days later, he scheduled the meeting with the other guy. The guy that I chose from the pictures was actually really handsome. So the doing it part wasn't that hard. It was having my husband in the same room watching that was really hard. Then I noticed that my husband took out a camera. He was full on filming. I told him to turn that off and he said no. So after the guy left, I told my husband to delete the video. But he says he wants to keep it for when he goes away to the army. Everyone has their kinks, but this made me really uncomfortable. I actually feel like I can't trust that he won't show it to anybody. Imagine if he shows it to his army buddies. Now he's asking me to do it with another guy. What the heck should I do? Crazy story time about how my husband tried to unalive me and my lover when he caught us cheating. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. By the way, I'm at the airport again. I don't know how I always end up at the airport trying to do voiceovers, so sorry if it sounds weird. My husband and I have been together for 10 years, but we were best friends before we ever decided to get into a relationship. One thing about me is that I've never been able to stay loyal in a relationship. And because my husband was my friend before, he knew that. It was a running joke in our friend group that I was never going to be able to stay loyal to one man. Eventually, when my husband and I got married, he totally never thought that I would be able to do that to him. I mean, I never thought I was going to be able to cheat on him, but there I go. Fast forward to 4 months ago. I work in the fashion industry and I'm constantly in contact with lots of models and good-looking people. So this cute guy comes into my office and he's a model, and he started flirting with me right away. I mean, he was actually pretty much flirting with every woman in the office, but I was like, oh my god, he's so cute. I had 3 options. I could ignore the flirting, or I could flirt back, or I could flirt back and give him my number. I went with option C. I gave him my number and he texted me later that day asking if I wanted to go to dinner. I said yes. So I told my husband that I was going to be staying at the office late, which I did all the time anyway, and he trusted me. After that dinner, this guy and I were totally inseparable. We would meet up for lunch every single day and hang out for a few hours after I finished work, or sometimes I would get off work early to go hang out with him. I told this guy I was going through a separation and that's why I couldn't stay over at his place. And he believed me. By the way, I'm using the shade Verano from my Tanya collection with Auna. If you guys want to shop it, it's the link in my bio. My husband travels for work a lot, and this was my saving grace. Whenever my husband would go out on trips, I'd invite my boyfriend to stay over at my house. While on one of those trips, my husband came home early and didn't bother to tell me. Apparently, he already had his suspicions and wanted to catch me in a lie. He catches me and my lover in the act. My husband went psycho, you guys. He grabbed his gun and held us at gunpoint for 4 hours. Part 2 is up. 2 of how my husband tried to unalive me and my lover when he caught us cheating. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I was said to be on Instagram. When my husband catches us in the act, he pulls out his gun and holds us at gunpoint for 4 hours. The entire time, he was trashing our bedroom. My boyfriend, aka the model I was cheating on him with, basically cried the entire time and didn't say a word. While me, on the other hand, was trying to explain to my husband that he knew that I was like this. Well, that just made him angrier. Eventually, I told him that I would give him a divorce if he wanted one. And that's when my husband told me that he was never going to divorce me and that I was going to stay loyal to him for the rest of my life. And I promised him that I would. Finally, after 4 hours, he made me promise never to see this guy again, which I agreed to. The guy told me that he would never want to see me again and that he didn't want any trouble. He also told my husband that he was a victim in this whole thing and that I lied to him about being in a relationship, which is kind of true. So then my husband got even angrier. My boyfriend ran out of the house and promised not to call the police. That's when my husband told me that he already knew about the relationship and that he had been spying on me with him this whole time. When I asked him how he'd been spying, he didn't want to tell me. This led me to believe that he probably has cameras around our house and that he probably put some spyware stuff in my phone so he knows exactly what I'm doing on it. Then he told me that from now on I was to never take the pill again and that he wanted me to get pregnant as soon as possible. My career is super important to me and he knows that I don't want to have kids just yet. But now he's basically forcing me into having children. I told him we should really consider getting a divorce or at least going to couples counseling, and he doesn't want to. I know I shouldn't have cheated on him, but at the same time, I'm being forced into staying in this relationship and I'm being forced into getting pregnant. He's even dropping me off at work and picking me up. I feel like he's always watching me and I don't know what to do. I also feel bad because I broke his heart and I know he's hurting, but he's totally going about this the wrong way. I know you guys are going to have some advice on what I should do, so please comment. My best friend thinks I should just go file for divorce during my lunch break, but I don't know. I feel like it's just going to make him kill me. What should I do?